Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us today for another episode of our Everflow Fireside Chat series. We have a very exciting topic for today, which is 2025 e-commerce trends to watch. And we have two amazing guests that will be sharing their insights, and that's what is going to make they're going to be making this fireside chat very very special. Let me start introducing Ben Marks, Director of Global Market Development at Shopware. Ben, welcome. Great having you.
Thanks. I'm looking forward to it. Enjoyed our kind of review. It's going to be a good time when the review session sparks a lot of thoughts that I've had to follow up on in the lead up. So glad to be here.
Nice. And we also have Noah Ockenberg, is the co-founder and CEO of Above the Fray Design, which is an expert end-to-end e-commerce agency. Welcome, Noah. Great having you as well.
Yeah, thanks for having me on board here, Ed.
So you guys have a unique perspective on this topic, and you have a lot of insight to share. So let's get to it. And just to start, break the ice. Why don't you make a very quick intro about yourself and share something unique that probably people would not know about you? Anything.
Ben, you go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, you go ahead. No, you go ahead. I've been working, kind of found my way, stumbled into e-commerce development, really open source e-commerce development before I even knew what open source was. It was back in 2005, and a little bit before that actually. And then it just kind of kept going. It turns out commerce is always there if you're looking for something to do. Things you might not know about me. There are a few that I probably don't even know about myself. So happily married to my wife, and we've been to 50 countries together, mostly with my work.
That's awesome.
I knew that. Yeah.
Noah?
Yeah, it's funny. So my company's Above the Fray, and started it about 7.5 years ago with my co-founder, Erin Hunt. She's our chief creative officer. We had worked together for now about, 15 years or so. We always, we had a lot of success working together. She's an incredible designer. I faked being a really good sales guy because all I had to do was point to her design. People were like, sign us up. So we were like, we should do this for ourselves one day. And we did. There's a little more to it, but e-commerce, we decided, kind of like Ben was saying, commerce is always there. It's a vehicle. And really, I think some of what we're going to chat about today is going to be interesting because, the trends in e-commerce aren't all about e-commerce per se. And so we knew that kind of going in when we started Above the Fray. We wanted to lead with design and go down that road to where it would take us. But it's been a beautiful path. We're headquartered, by the way, here in I was going to say sunny Portland, Oregon, but this is our first real day of rain. It's actually been beautiful up until just about a couple days ago, and we're starting to get some classic Portland weather here going. So I love it. I got webbed feet, but might not be for everybody.
Yeah, that's awesome. So I would just introduce myself. Ed Ceballos. I'm the VP of Partner Ecosystem here at Everflow, and I will have the honor to hear all these good insight from both of you guys. So let's jump into the today's topic, which is 2025 e-commerce trends. Every brand, every DTC brand is launched already, ready to take advantage as much as they can on the holiday season. Every good idea or recommendation on how to take advantage has already been said. And companies will start quickly getting into the 2025 planning and start thinking and where they need to invest, where they need to get improvements, how they can capture, where those opportunities are, and all this is going to be the focus today, is thinking forward. So if you were looking for some advice on how to take advantage of holiday season, we're not going to be sharing a lot of that, but definitely if you're thinking you're closing a fiscal cycle and a fiscal year, and you want to make sure that you can grow next year faster, but that's our focus today. So the first question is pretty obvious. What are the biggest e-commerce trends you guys are seeing are relevant as we approach 2025, and how should business prepare for them? And it can be any of you whomever wants to start first with the answer.
Noah, since you have an agency practice and you are most directly chatting with the people who are handling and sometimes guiding merchant needs, man, I think you have a lot to say about this.
Yeah, boots on the ground, folks. And we can help you with some holiday trends for, maybe if we're talking summer solstice 2025 or winter holidays 2025. But yeah, and it's funny too. One of the things that classically people are preparing for their next year almost a year in advance. A lot of the planning that goes on, a lot of the trends that are happening, may really start to sink in, a year from now, 6 to 12 months from now. But I think one thing that we've been finding is just that those sort of micro trends and the rapidly evolving elements that are getting infused, that you have to have your feet doing the happy dance constantly to get on top of. I think we're probably not creating any revolutionary thought here to talk about what AI has provided for the masses more, how it's become more packaged up and more accessible with some of the tools that have been released. I think a lot of folks are just scratching the surface on it, but those changes that are creating for the industry are ones that you can't plan a year ahead necessarily, because you're already going to be behind. And so I think one of the things that we've been realizing is just how much more rapidly these things evolve and how much quicker that we have to get on top of them. I think one of the, there's also a lot of noise going on. So we can talk more about specifics on, how that applies to, the AI applies to both agencies and how we help our merchants and manufacturers that we work with, and also how our merchants are using that themselves. But, the other piece too that I wanted to kind of emphasize is that a lot of the stuff that folks do spend a lot of time with when it's boots on the ground isn't yet as prevalent. So I'm talking about from what I've seen in my experience, some of the mixed reality, virtual reality, things like that. There's some fantastic applications for it. It's been around for a while and people are pushing it in new ways to adopt it. Meta's coming out with some new stuff, I think, coming up here. But it still involves some hardware that we're just not seeing being adopted as widespread, both by consumers or if you're in a B2B setup for, by some manufacturers. People are investing quite a bit of money in some of those areas, and it's just not being utilized as much. So as much as the trends that I think we should pay attention to that are important, it's also important to pay attention to what may not be really there yet, and not be used, and to kind of focus our time on between those two.
Yeah,
Ben,
for this,
yours clicking.
Yeah, for this upcoming shopping season, I think at this point in the year, it's not always a great idea to introduce a whole lot of unnatural movements or motions. Really, lock in on what anticipate the fact that acquiring customers may just in general may not have ever been more expensive than it is right now. Just with the oxygen being sucked out of the room by some of the large marketplaces. I was hanging out with Meta last week in New York, and this I mean, they confirmed as much for me. So I take that for what you will. Their job, as they would proudly say, is their job is to sell ads. So they kind of have their finger on the pulse. Now, what I would say is that this is a time to engage with the customers that you've already acquired. Make sure that they know you're there, that they know what you have on offer, the levers that any merchant can pull right now, and we know from data coming out of Adobe and Salesforce that it's really important to meet the value mindedness of consumers these days. So discounts are going to be a big topic, just like they were in 2023. I think some of the data from last year shows that there was a significant influence in purchase behavior correlated with heavy discounts. We did see some interesting data about AI coming out. There was about 50 billion in volume was influenced by AI backed tools. But I think there again, you have to get into, AI just as a moniker is almost so generic as to be useless, right? Because the companies that have been doing AI for a long time, and really it's this, continuum or grades of machine learning and analysis. And only recently do we have this generative transformation as a possibility that gives us this natural language interface. Now, there are tools out there. I know our platform has, we index a lot on operational, so things on the back end that help just the day-to-day operations go more smoothly. But as far as consumer facing tech, I think we're only really just the beginning of the curve of personalization. But you do another good thing to index on is make sure you're paying attention to people who are searching. If they're searching, we were speaking yesterday about people having a conversation. The merchant and the consumer having a conversation. Well, one of those conversion channels is search. And I've always, even from the beginning of my career, I've always loved searching customers because they're there, they're engaged. I say, let's make sure that you're searching, you're paying attention to the search data. You're really getting consumers right to where they need to be. And then from there, it's just a matter of tuning your upsell and cross-sell capabilities. So those are not earth-shattering revelations, but probably bear some underscoring given this backdrop of AI glitz and glamour over here. Nothing has displaced the fundamentals. If your customers are there, engage them, and if they're not there, make sure that they remember who you are and where you are.
Ben, just to clarify, you're talking more on like the on-site search versus in like search engines or both.
Yeah, that's a good thing to bring up because there again, I mean, it gets back to the whole thing about the oxygen in the room. When you've got the Temu and others buying up all the sort of preferred placement and everything else. SEO, I think, really good organic search engine marketing and placement. I think it effectively waters that down, right? So there's only so much you can really do. You can't optimize the experience. I mean, again, if you can find the pipeline of customers that are making it into one of your properties, whether it's your web property, your social media channels, whatever the case may be, then you might look at, okay, well, how do I optimize the landing page experience? If I know they're coming in focused on one product as opposed to the brand, let's get that product. Let's get an embedded checkout in place. Let's just make it easy for them, A, to hand us some money, but B, don't forget you're also building a relationship there. I mean, unless you're in a completely commodity space, in which case that shopper's probably on Amazon to begin with or Temu.
Yep.
And another interesting thing that that you might do, that folks might consider is looking at micro influencers, right? So this is a bit asymmetric from what most merchants are doing. If they're not doing this, they're focused on ramping up. You probably can find one of the micro influencer brokers and work with them. They'll help you identify the right people who are talking about the right things in the right space. If you're selling cleaning products, I'm sure there's someone out there who's got this. They're not they don't have millions of followers, but they have a highly engaged audience that are looking for, great cleaning products, or, could be some kind of, nutrition supplements, whatever the case may be. So those resources are out there, and that is actually something you can probably have someone in-house with a little bit of capacity engage as a test. And I would do all of this. I mean, anything you do, I would do all of this with an eye towards the question of what's going to happen next year. What is this going to be like next year? Because for sure, the presence of AI will be a little bit deeper. The tooling will be a little bit more apparent, what you should be doing and what you should be expecting of it. And so anything that you're doing today, whether it's AI or looking at influencer marketing or whatever the case may be, consider this shopping season as a good test bed for next season. But just again, focus on the fundamentals so that you're healthy and make it through all that.
Ben, one thing that you said, I think that ties a lot into kind of what I'm seeing, just like boots on the grounds, is that there isn't, the Timus, the folks like that are owning that organic rankings at the top or even buying them out. E-commerce websites are becoming much more destination spots, not places that you happen upon as much. And so people, we're seeing a lot more merchants and manufacturers alike that do B2B versus, selling direct to consumers, focusing on brand engagement and brand experience and the relevance of their brand with who they're trying to speak to and create a community around. And because creating that community is really the way that they're getting folks to their website, to their location, to engage with their brand through digital channels, purchasing or whatever that conversion point might be. And so that, that means folks that maybe traditionally in the past were much more focused on commoditization of what they're offering and selling their products, whatever, are starting to go back to some basics of like who we are, start at the top, what's our corporate vision, what's our mission, what's our values, and how do we represent that through every facet of what we do, offline and online. And then this online experience is just sort of an extension of that they come to find and engage with. And I think that's kind of fun to watch because it's bringing it back to kind of some really basics of humanity beyond all the digital stuff, right?
Well, it is great. I mean, I've always enjoyed the B2B space. I mean, granted, like an open source approach, it lends itself naturally to solving the problems because B2B is always so nuanced, right? It's just the requirements are generally very specific, so you have, it's an interesting challenge to solve for, like at the platform level. But you're absolutely right. No, when you get into these, what we're seeing now is, in some ways B2B has always lagged B2C, and so we get to take some of this years of B2C learnings that everyone in the chain, the merchants, the platforms, the agencies, we're getting to start to apply some of this stuff to the B2B space. Believe me, I'm here for it. Now, I think it's too reductive to say that essentially B2B is just B2C, but like 7 years late in terms of consumer trends. Because again, it's different expectations, different relationship, but it is fun to bring in some of the capabilities and to bring in some of these, and to come up with new inventive channels. I mean, not again to toot our own horn. I just happen to know most about our platform. We have like a digital sales room that takes the rep off the road, and but it's a curated experience, and it can be attended or unattended. I mean, and I'm not saying we're the only ones innovating in the B2B space. I'm sure several platforms out there must have the capability to truly like transform and make digital or bring online or make more effective how two businesses interact, right? And just reducing any of the friction in that whether it's putting an order together or whether it's getting an order approved or getting an order out and actually into where it needs to be then sold to a consumer. So I'm ecstatic that all of this stuff is here, and of course just like B2C, the AI is coming in there, and
it's all happening.
It's all finally happening. But no, seriously, it's we are at a really, really fun time, I think, for B2B. And but there again, the B2B buy cycle. I mean, this is orders for stock that are going to be sold in the shopping season. I mean, those hopefully have already been placed. If they're not placed, they're going to be placed in the next week, right? Because thankfully we don't have the supply chain problems that we had a couple of years ago.
Oh man, I'm not.
However,
right now.
well, yeah, and I really should not.
I'll put those words out in the universe. Yeah.
Yeah, I did just issue a challenge, but I do think, I do think that what's going to happen is coming off of this shopping season, there's going to be a real, after the chaos of a couple of years ago, coming off of this shopping season, businesses are going to look at, okay, how well did we get this right? How good were our projections? What came up? What should we prepare for? How can we do inventory a little more just in time? Basically, how can we be more efficient? How can we reduce overhead? Classic business problems. But I think we're seeing that at all levels of the industry, right? That the businesses are trying to figure out how to make either stay at the same level by cutting costs, or if they're growing, basically increase that delta through controlling and cutting some costs.
Ben, something you mentioned at the very beginning, and I think that somehow you kind of said the overarching theme of everything that came after, is realizing that most of the challenges and the issues go back to business fundamentals. And sometimes we start bringing the buzzwords like AR, AI, augmented reality, etc., and we start thinking on these levels of complexity, right, for industries that are still defining themselves. In some cases, you might even say they have not even crossed the hype cycle, right? So, but ultimately, when you have a business, there are some fundamentals, and I would say that when you can tackle those fundamentals, you can get like like 10 times, fivefold improvements on the business. And let me bring an example. How many companies out there, B2B or B2C, can claim that they have really put the cart abandonment issue under control? And like, how many companies can say that the abandonment rate is so small that they don't care about, they have it under control? Like there's like every percentage of cart abandonment that you solve, how much that impact in your bottom line. The other like that, there are so many examples. And I know that we spoke before about business to business in early in the week, and it is indeed very different to B2C in terms of the buying cycle and who is involved. Because if you go to a large, let's say, manufacturing operation, probably the first point of contact is a purchasing manager who has a different playbook compared to the user who is trying to drive the brand. That is completely understood. But there are things that are still are very much in common B2C, and I think that B2B can lean on those experiences, because ultimately, and this is I'm sure very familiar for Noah, because you are passionate on design. Something you always understand on design thinking is when you engage with a buyer, that person is engaging and is connecting with your brand or not, at a personal level, at a functional level, and a professional level. So me as the buyer, me as the user, me as like, do I like it? Do I feel I can trust these brand claims? And there is some interesting research out there proving that only 14% of buyers at any point in the buying cycle will believe on the brand's claims, right? Only 14%. While there are many studies, and there is one that was published by Partnership Leaders community like 18 months ago, and they say like 87% of people will rely on peers' recommendation or the agency and trusted consultants. So the answer putting all these marketing effort, this branding effort, and then we go meet in London, share a beer, and I tell you, hey, I need CRM, and you tell me HubSpot, like you're gonna bias me so hard. I can speak with 10 different salespeople, but your recommendation, because I trust you, is gonna be heavy on me, right? So the power of influence is something that where I believe business to business can still learn a lot, right? And how we can actually use some form of partner relationships to diversify and be able to get in contact, get influence, and acquire clients in a more efficient way. Because we can agree that the number one challenge still today is how can you acquire clients in a more consistent and efficient way, a capital efficient way, right?
Well, we've come a lot. We've come a long way since like the Mad Men days of black and white ads, and my
Zero.
doctor smokes Camels, right?
4 out of 5.
And this because it hits the taste center. I mean, these ads were crazy, and that was a gosh, what a glorious and uncomplicated time. Like, oh, this is a commercial that's like got an actor I know, and it's airing during the news, and it just has this air of trust about it. But these days, the consumers triangulate in on trust, right? It's not just I'm taking what I hear. And it's just to reminded me, like Edelman, there was an Edelman survey came out last year. 7 in 10 consumers say trust in brands has become more important. But I think that is true. Okay, so consumers are telling us that they want to believe what these brands are presenting, whether it's sustainability, et cetera. And there's some separate data from YouGov that actually that addresses the skepticism around it. And I think it's healthy and reasonable skepticism. But when we look at that triangulation into trust, right, it's no longer just this two-party relationship. They want the social proof. Now, this can be, back to my point about micro influencers, this could be partners. This also, I think, celebrity endorsements, can still be important there, but there again, I think people are looking for more proof in more places. I do think that depends on what's being sold and to whom and by whom. But yeah, there people need to see multiple waypoints on that path to purchase that says, hey, this is this thing that I'm buying for this reason. I know that the reasons that I have are backed up by these points of trust.
The touch points have gone up exponentially, between, first awareness to purchase. And that's across the board for us, for when somebody wants to work with us as an agency, for our manufacturers, when they want to bring in a new dealership to sell their heavy equipment, for, anybody that's, even selling direct to the end consumer, because of all those proof points that are out there. There's also a lot of noise that's out there too. I would love to see some data. Ed, you mentioned that 17% of folks trust, at that one juncture. I wonder how many people actually trust like the reviews on websites that are completely curated by like they know they're curated by the owner of the website, but I think people still do believe in those to an extent. And sometimes I see a bad rating, and I'm kind of like, well, these are honest folks. I actually believe this brand more. But, people are looking for those proof points. They're turning to, like you said, over a beer, making a recommendation on a CRM. But it's also up to the brands to provide those and to put them in front of your face, to smack you upside the head with them. Because, we work with some brands, some manufacturers that they actually did. How do you differentiate? And they're like, well, because the quality. Well, what does that mean? Well, we're the most quality. Okay, great. Well, what does that really mean? And then we have this innovation award, and this is how we do our R&D, and this is how we come up with these solutions for these problems that people are out in the field. And okay, well, where does it say that? It just says, you do quality on your website, and like your website's not enough. You have to get out there and you have to push these proof points, whether it's through an influencer, whether it's through reviews, whether it's third parties, through associations, through organizations, through partnerships like, the three of us have here, and different types of those things. So I think the sort of omni-channelness of it all is exploded to a place where when you're tracing the customer journey and trying to be where they're at, it's again, you can't follow a trend that's a year out anymore. You have to be paying attention to where it's at.
Yeah,
today.
This gets us into something else that we've spoken about just as a group private. Like this is also an insidious challenge with how fresh and new these natural language interfaces into data are. stores increasingly have, they have the AI tools. The AI tools rely on the data, making sure you're paying attention to that data and using that data well. And I think that is really sort of hidden behind the glitz and glam, the glowing banners of the promises of AI and what it can do for us is, get back to the fundamentals and like, okay, well, what does this mean? And how well can I, what does this mean for my business and my operations, and how well am I actually making use of the data available to me, both first party data and then linking that up to the big data aggregators, and then also the tools that I'm using. And depending on the kind of functionality that they provide, do they have this breadth of insulation that is informing and helping them iterate and become better and better, whether it's intelligent search, personalization, right? It should all becoming more and more and more and more targeted to the individual, shopper, right? And so that as a store operations person, or as a store owner, I have that faith that I'm actually bringing to bear the full weight of all the data and resources available to me. And why I bring this up, back to my point about this year versus this time next year. This time next year, there are going to be a lot of businesses, a lot of your competitors, if you're a merchant, and hopefully you, but there are going to be a lot of businesses that have figured this out. And as this industry, we see this time and again, as this industry, put something novel into place. I always use the example of like A/B or multivariate testing, right? It was really interesting when it came out. Quickly let us, iterate. But what we saw was that the things that one merchant learned from one A/B or multivariate test, and then they try that, and it went over like gangbusters. They implemented something. Well, quickly that catches fire, and that goes across the whole industry. So all of a sudden, it's not just about this one test in this one place. It becomes a new practice. And that practice becomes a new consumer expectation. Consumer expectations, it's a tightening spiral. In terms of ideation, implementation, new norm, and that just has been going and tightening up and increasing. The velocity of that is amazing, and we will see that for sure in this space. So it gets back to data and how many points of data that you have to actually know and trust what your tooling is doing and how effective that is.
Then that's just a kind of real, like, rubber meets the road experience here. Your search is, your intelligent search is only as intelligent as the data going into it. Your personalization is only as personal as the data, and from like that real world sort of experience, when we walk in, when there's a merchant that wants us to help take advantage of any of these sort of tools that need that data, one of the things that we look at first to see what we're going to be able to do is what state is it in. And when we speak, there's one of our clients down in Carlsbad in San Diego area, just spent the last year taking, 30 years of data, both offline and online, and grooming it and compiling it and cleaning it. And this was like, I think for over 300,000 different, franchises that they used. And they did this lion's share of the work to clean this and organize it, to understand what it is. And now we're able to use it. But just imagine they come to us and say, hey, we want this AI thing. We want this intelligent search thing. We want this personalization engine thing we've been hearing about. Cool. Well, let's get under the hood, see what you got to work with. We're like, okay, all right. So now we got a year-long project. So if you're talking about where you're going to be at in a year. If you haven't, the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The next best time is today. Get going on that now. And if you have gotten going on it, find the right ways to use it.
something
I just wanted to bring it back to the abandoned cart point, right? So the interesting thing about the data in this case is that the data shape that funnel, right? So conversions and whether someone shows up and then whether they convert, that's been shaped by these tools. And then on the backside, whether that engagement works or not, it's yet more data. So I think, Noah, you make the good point of, I think businesses can be sitting on mountains of data, just think, oh, we have the data, and then want to do this engagement, and you realize, no, this data needs to be transformed into a usable set But then you also need to remember that this is ongoing forever. Sorry, I just wanted to bring it back to that a bit.
No, it's fantastic. It's fantastic. Thank you, Ben, for that, because that's certainly, like, if you look at the e-commerce space, I don't think that many brands can be, and many operations can be happy saying we have the talent that we need in terms of the maturity, the readiness, and the headcount that we need, right? Everyone is trying to be efficient there, but there is still a war of talent. There is not a lot of people for each of the positions. There is still a real problem in the market. And now you have people trying to make use of data. In many cases, do not have the ability to curate data and validate data and make data more usable. And now we're going to be adding a layer of AI-powered tools. They're going to start making use of that data. And we start seeing that already with companies that start relying like, oh, we can use AI to produce much more content. Instead of one piece or 20 pieces a week, we're going to have 20 or 100, 200. And then they are discovering 3-6 months down the road that their rankings on SEO were actually hurting because they are generating volume, but the quality and engagement is not there and is counterintuitive. So how many cases, I wonder, we will see that thing of brands following with some not very reliable data and some magical solutions, which end up affecting them, and how long it's going to take until they realize, instead of just pumping more money to the next magical AI tool, which is probably going to be a distraction for many companies. So I wonder what we're going to see next year on that.
It's interesting when you think about this as like a signal to noise problem. I used to do, like audio engineering stuff. It sucks when the noise level just gets raised, right? It really does, but it's also really, really magical, because when that noise level goes up, the good thing is we're not limited by physical media or anything. So even though the noise level goes up, it really gives you a chance to stand out if you can keep that signal to noise ratio much higher. So if your light post, goal post, whatever metaphor you want to use, peak waveform is up above that floor of AI drivel, like generative AI drivel, then and the great thing is, your competitors, because everyone paying attention, everyone listening in right now, you're the good ones, right? So it's your competitors who are going to have the problem, right? And your competitors are going to have the problem of they're going to get distracted by this stuff. You're not going to get distracted by this stuff. You're actually going to do the things that matter and realize that it's not, again, I think that there's far too much focus on consumer facing things, not enough focus when it comes to AI and generative tooling to back-end operations, to basically just turbocharging what's happening behind the scenes in the store. And that includes the general concept of bringing more data into the decision frame, right, and letting people make better decisions based on better insight, better analysis of the data. So when I look at this point, and you brought it up, and it's shown up in so many ways already, and we know that search engines are they're pretty good at sniffing out the generative content. That hasn't been, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it. I use it all the time, but you use it as a start. You use it as a tool to get going, right? And then you have to bring something original, engaging. But then it's not just about getting the content out. You need the engagement. I think you can get lulled using this tooling. You can get lulled into like, okay, well, we threw something at the generative wall, a bunch of it stuck. Now we're going to put it out there into the ether. Well, that doesn't make a difference. You still need to get eyeballs and engagements. You need to get people interacting with the content. And I think a lot of people are still able to tell the difference. I don't know how long this will be the case between, AI generated verbiage and imagery. But I think I would argue that the point at which it doesn't matter, like we just had a hackathon at our headquarters in Germany, a weekend or two ago, I think a weekend ago. And we had some guys out from Fine Grain AI startup. And one of the problems they're solving for is a problem that some other e-commerce platforms have solved, which is how do I develop scenery and then drop products into that scenery when both are completely different images. So that problem is basically solved, and it is difficult to tell because the shading is correct, the highlights are correct, everything just works and it looks natural.
Yeah.
And at that point, I'd say it doesn't really matter as long as what's being represented is accurate. So it gets back to that thing of consumer trust. Like if I see a shoe sitting in the middle of a basketball court, does that shoe actually look like what it looks like when it arrives to me? That's going to be the same thing. Now, all we've done is we've then just said, hey, this person's shopping for this shoe. We know that they love to go out and do pickup basketball, right? So we're able to generate that scene on the fly, show the merchandise in a context that is familiar with them, and give them a little bit more confidence to purchase. And as long as we have maintained this fundamental promise of like, I'm going to show you what you're buying and you're going to get what you're buying. And then you back in all this other stuff about like, we're going to use our shipping intelligence to tell you exactly when it's going to show up. You put all of this together and you just have a well-curated, well-informed buying experience that will pay off in dividends when that customer then comes back because of that trustworthy experience that they had.
I love it. So guys, we have less than 5 minutes left to wrap this up. And I will ask you a question. You know that we mentioned different variables and different factors that companies will have to keep in mind in order to be successful, continue growing, or start growing faster if that's what they need to do in 2025. And we have these big overarching themes that you both mentioned, right? You mentioned market transitions in the hand of driven by AI, and there are some other things that are always important. It comes to the fundamentals, like you can have a lot of things, but shoppers and consumers love convenience. Excuse me, right? And there's no convenience without the lack of a good experience, right? And there are things that can be very particular for business to business versus B2C, but ultimately you need to be where and when the customer is looking for something. So can you be at the right time when someone is looking for a solution? Can you bring that convenience? Can you bring the right information and the right social proof? So you're going to make it easy for that person to move across that funnel or that journey to end up becoming a customer. And as you guys established very early, this comes down to fundamentals, but the world is still changing. So my question to you is, for anyone who is listening this, what are the one big takeaway you want them to have from this fireside chat? What is like your biggest and most strong recommendation in order to prepare correctly for 2025?
I thought you were going to start talking about that predictive, putting social proof in front of people at the right moment. And I thought we were going to get like this Minority Report type conversation here. That was like, do we do that through that? I personally, I feel like the theme of what we spoke about today and kind of the trends of what we're seeing is that acknowledge and understand and embrace these new tools and technologies and systems and platforms, like all the different things that AI can bring, and et cetera, but work backwards from them back to basics and start with that. That, if you have one thing to do right now, it's to not get distracted by, sure, pay attention to what people are really getting value out of, but then make sure your house is in order. And this is probably because of my own just sort of PTSD of working with folks that all day, every day, that want to talk about the shiny objects and the shiny things. They're important. They will be transformational for your business. But if you don't have the house in order, if you don't have things organized, which is by far and wide the largest challenge that I still see on a day-to-day basis with all this other stuff that's available, then you're not going to be able to take advantage of any of it. And so that, to me, I'm going to be real boring and say that. I think Ben's going to say something much more engaging, intriguing, and sparking off, like the Spark. You're the one who sang that song, by the way, the Spark, the Irish Kids group. We got the energy.
Oh, that's sick. Oh, that's such a great tune. I love everything about it. It's so genuine and pure. Actually, I was really thinking I should underscore what you've said, Noah, which is don't get distracted. I mean, no matter what cool and neat tools come in and what kind of gold rush spaces open up. I mean, if your operations are bad, well, guess what? I mean, everything's going to be operating at scale. So just you're going to be scaling like in bad directions, right? You're going to, because your distraction is going to be increased. Your effectiveness is going to be scaled, but kind of scaled in the wrong direction. You're going to everything is going to be intensified and multiplied, and that's the big thing to think about. I would say, but you have to pay attention to the scaling effect that's coming just in general from all directions. And you look at your revenue, your business's revenue engine, right? Your revenue engine. I would actually, you're not supposed to introduce new things in a conclusion, but I would say, I mean, in addition to paying attention and making sure you actually are receiving and understanding and utilizing the data that is now available to us. And I really the fact that we can analyze and interact with that data so well now, we can ask natural language questions of things. Show me, my top 30 customers who haven't ordered anything in the last, 10 years. You don't need, this is entirely no code now. You don't need anyone in business intelligence to do this for you. This is a power, and you have to avail yourself of this power, because for sure everyone else in the industry is. But I would also look at how you, as an exercise that can grow out of that, diversify your revenue engine, right? So the ways that you're making money, anticipate that, that the fundamentals of even that are changing. We didn't even touch on what's happening with consumer behaviors around credit and surcharging. There are a lot of what appear to be external influences on people's businesses. But if you anticipate it, it's not an external influence. It's all of a sudden become an advantage if you figured out what's coming and how you're going to address it before it shows up. Because while your competitors are scrambling to implement surcharging and do whatever it is, right, you're already out in front. And that being out in front always, it really tends to convey a lot more advantage than disadvantage. So
Ben, that was beautiful. Ed, before we part, I just thought about one thing too. If you are already, your house already is in order, and I'm just kind of preaching to the choir here about that. I think it's easy to lose track of the art of what we're doing. And with the AI, everybody feels like they can do, everybody's an artist now because they can do AI art, and everybody's this and that. And all the real artists are up in arms because they're getting, ripped off left and right. But keep in mind that new artists are going to emerge that understand the art of these new technologies. They understand the art of AI and the art. I mean, there's art to code development. There's art to all of this. Art's not just paint, brush strokes on canvas. And so look for the artist, become an artist if that's your thing. If not, find artists to work with that specialize in the art of this new things, because everybody's going to be trying to use AI in very similar ways. The artists are going to be the ones to find new ways to use it in creative ways for your business. So if your house is in order already, it's time to start painting. And
that's beautiful.
Oh, I love it.
Absolutely beautiful.
Yeah, absolutely. Just like 15, 20 years ago, the industry was talking about digital natives, right?
Yep.
And we will have a generation of AI natives and people who are born into this new media. And we've seen this type of transition before. And we have people talking about digital camera, and then you have people just saying camera. You don't even need to put the word digital.
Everybody's a photographer, right? Yeah.
Right, and it will happen. And just like we mentioned, some people will be distracted by the noise of AI. You can bet that some people will really succeed and will start taking advantage in the market by figuring out good ways to use new technologies. And so ultimately, one of the biggest, let's say, organizational capabilities to succeed in 2025 onwards is definitely going to be agility, right? It's your ability to get the right data, understand things from the customer perspective, understand these forces driving the market and market behavior, and then being able to translate this into a new program, changes on anything when you go to market, and how fast can you do that? How fast can you test something, measure, learn from it, adjust, and keep optimizing the business? And if agility was important before and has been even more important with in the last 10, 15 years, it's going to be even worse. So how fast you can move, and from the vantage point of what Shopware can bring customers, is definitely a platform that can give them that flexibility and capabilities to exercise that agility to make changes in the business. And agencies like your agency, Noah, can bring the expertise and reduce the time to market to affect those changes and make the right choices. From the Everflow perspective, we've seen how many of our clients, many of them even joint clients with you guys, how they actually take advantage of partners in the market to diversify, and be able to capture and source new clients in, as I mentioned earlier, in the most capital efficient way. And you don't know how sometimes the right partnership can unlock a whole new set of growth. I will share one closing example. If you think like, if you talk with people managing affiliate programs, um, when you look at the top type of partner or publisher they care about because they drive increasing results for the business, additional growth, you could be surprised to find that one of the top three partners is buy now, pay later. And so you're driving yourself crazy to make your brand story to become more attractive in the market, to be found in the search engine. And guess what? A lot of people doing half of your job, half of your effort. Just do a proper partnership with the buy now, pay later, and people find the convenience and then that buy with someone who can finance them on the spot, right? So when you think about things from the customer perspective, there are so many avenues to growth, to reach that growth. And I think partnerships is a fantastic way to unlock that power. And as long as you stay, like this Plato phrase from this philosopher that says, if you want to convince me, you have to speak my words, think my thoughts, and feel my feelings. As long as you can continue doing that and see things from the vantage point of the people who have the intention to get a solution of what you can serve, then you will be able to hack it with enough agility, right?
Well, that's a true closing statement, a Plato quote. Yeah, I love it.
Guys, it was great having you. I wish you had more time. I'm sure we will have another round, to another opportunity to chat more about this. It's fascinating. Thank you very much for sharing your insights. And it was really interesting. Enjoy having you guys.